This is District Council 37, State of the Union, the public service journal of New York City's largest public employee union, representing more than 120,000 everyday heroes, from accountants to zookeepers who make our city run, and 50,000 retirees. And now, DC 37 Executive Director Henry Garrido and his guests.
Hello, and welcome to State of the Union. I am Henry Garrido, and in January, I had the honor of becoming Executive Director of DC 37. We are excited about our vision to build a strong union as a fighter for strong public services and programs that help all New Yorkers. Joining me today is my co-host, DC 37 Secretary Cliff Koppelman. Public libraries are among our community's most valuable assets. They are the education, jobs, and community centers of our neighborhoods. Now, more than ever, funding these jewels of the city deserve our most urgent attention. This is why DC 37 has joined community groups to call on Mayor Bill de Blasio to substantially increase funding levels for our public libraries in the fiscal 2016 city budget. To discuss these critical issues, we're talking today with DC 37 local presidents representing our members who work in the public libraries. Joining us are John Hyslop, President of Queens Library, Guild Local 1321, and Eileen Mueller, President of Brooklyn Library Guild Local 1482. Thank you, John and Eileen, for joining us today. Right. As you know, DC 37 has launched a campaign for funding for libraries. Can you tell us a little bit about that campaign?
Certainly, Henry. As you know, the libraries over the past number of years have gotten a decrease in the amount of money that they need. And we're looking to have about $65 million, not about, $65 million to operate the extra to operate the libraries over the next year, in the fiscal year 16. John, you want to add to that?
In this, yeah, definitely. In this campaign, we're working with the three systems, the City Council members, the Revson Foundation, the Center for an Urban Future, and Urban Librarians Unite, a coalition to advocate for the $65 million. So our people, our patrons, our customers, can have better services, more services, minimum 6 days services around the system, more hours for our operation, more MiFi hotspots that people use to get on the internet.
But for those who don't necessarily understand this, this is $60 million above what was put in the budget last year. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
We've had our budget slashed since 2008 by the mayor, Bloomberg. And
related to people, you lost actual people working in the library that could service the public who needs that service, right?
Correct. We've lost 21% of our staff.
And what does that number mean at Brooklyn? At Brooklyn Public Library, we lost about 300 people, workers, frontline staff that help the public when they come into the building.
Okay, so what if I come in as a person who needs help in a library? What did that mean to me? Did it mean that I couldn't get there every day of the week? I couldn't get there certain hours of the week? Yeah. You weren't able to provide the services? That's where all this comes from.
In 2008, we had a minimum 6-day service. So we were open Saturday. Okay. We had late nights. We were open in the morning. Now, since 2008, we've had to cut so much. Eileen's lost 300 people. Queens lost, 200 or so. Librarians, custodians, clerks, and we had to cut back hours. We're not open Saturdays. We're not offering after-school programs because we don't have the staff. We don't have the children's librarians to give those kids that extra help after school.
Is there a connection between libraries and schools? I know there was at one point where the schools, if they needed something for the children, they could bring them to the library, the actual library facility, and do things in the library.
Well, we still have class visits, and teachers can bring the children in, and they do have class visits, and they show the children how to use the library and instruct them on library usage. They also want to make it a fun time for them. They're coming in, they'll read them stories, they'll ask the teacher in advance to inform them what they're doing in school so that they can have materials ready for them and show and instruct the students of how to use the library. They want them to be able to use some of the databases that are available in the library as well, not just books. We're not just talking about books, we're talking about all the materials that are available for people in the library themselves. And that takes staff to do that, that's correct.
And in Queens, for example, we have branches that don't have children's librarians.
They don't have children's librarians.
Correct. We have branches that only have part-time children's librarians. So we do have children's librarians, many of them, who do a lot more, who do a lot of work, but we don't have enough staff. So the connection between the schools and the libraries aren't as tight or as strong because we don't have that staff anymore. We've lost that staff. We used to have a lot of staff. We used to have this program called CLASP, Connecting Libraries and Schools. We had to drop that because we don't have the staff to do it anymore. And that was a great program where librarians would go to schools and help and invite the schools to the libraries and have that connection. But we don't have that anymore because we don't have the staff. With this $65 million that we're asking for, that this coalition is fighting for, will do that. We will have that staff. We will be able to create those connections again.
Isn't there or wasn't there a program, I don't know if it's Queens or Brooklyn, where you had a language program with people who didn't have the facility in English could come in and get instruction to become a better English
ESOL
speaker.
classes, if you're referring to that, yes.
Yeah, that's gone also.
Well, we have it, but it's at a limit. There's just so much that you can do with the few people that we have now, where you might have been able to offer classes where possibly 100 people could partake in that. But since you can't have as many classes, maybe you only have 25 people that can partake in it.
And that's important because we have an ever-growing immigrant population. But for those who are in the audience who may not be familiar with the city council budget process, they may be wondering what they can do to help.
Right.
Are there any recommendations you may have for them or what they can do to get involved in this library funding campaign?
I think one of the most important things that people can do is get in touch with their city council person. They need to tell their city council person how important the library is to them, what the library means to them, how the library helps them with their children after school. If a parent is working and not able to be at home when your child gets home from school, they can come to the library and know that your children are going to be safe. So if that's something that you use and you think is a wonderful service, you can tell your council person that. If that's not the service that's good for you, there are many other things out there. Cliff mentioned about ESOL classes. My branch that I have an office in is in Flatbush, and right outside of my office we have a pre-GED class that goes on. That goes on during the day, and these are adults that come to this class that don't know how to read, that have never had the opportunity to finish their high school education. Well, now they're getting prepped so that they can go and take the GED test and pass the GED test.
Who's doing the instruction?
We have an instructor, an instructor who comes in part-time and does that.
So as I understand, that part of the $65 million goes to the operating side, but there's also another aspect that has to do with the capital budget and the infrastructure. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Certainly, as you said, it is the capital budget. And those are the things, the money that's used to repair the roof, to paint, if painting is the thing to repair. The bathrooms, libraries have public bathrooms. They have to be maintained. So how do you maintain them? What happens if you have a problem? That money to redo those repairs comes from the capital budget. The roof, we have many, many leaky roofs. You're in the middle of a project, in the middle of a program, and there's a storm all of a sudden. The roof starts to leak. You have to start putting buckets out all over the place because the roof is leaking. That's not something that happens just once, it happens often.
And in this cold weather right now,
thank you, John.
Our boilers are breaking.
Right.
Queens has a number of boilers that are not producing heat, are broken, they're not getting replaced.
Right.
I'm sure Brooklyn has the same problem. I'm sure New York Public has the same problem.
Last week, Brooklyn had 4 libraries that had to close because of no heat.
And that's brutal. And our customers who, our older customers who come in, who are just looking to read the newspaper, interact with their neighbors, can't because that branch is closed. We're asked by the city to be heating centers.
Right.
And how can we be heating centers when our boilers are broken? That
And how much
capital
is
money,
estimated for that capital money?
what is it? 1.2?
$1.1 billion.
That's
But over 10
billion,
years.
yeah.
They're not looking for the money right now. I mean, certainly $1.1 billion is a lot of money, but they're looking for that money over 10 years. And it's also going to take a long time to make the, to correct the problems in the building. Also, some of our buildings aren't compliant with the ADA. That's something else that has to be looked at and taken care of. We seem to have just over the years really lost, so much money that was needed to repair our buildings.
You have two pieces. You have youngsters who need the library, especially, like you say, with a larger immigrant community coming in, it needs that help. But now, because the population is getting older people use the library.
That's correct.
And
That's
maybe
correct.
it's instead of hanging around at home or getting stuck by themselves, they have social
Right.
activities by coming to a library.
And we have a lot of programs for them where they can interact and they can learn.
Yeah,
Not
so-
only that, but if you have older people that are coming into the library every day, you get to know your patrons. You get to know who they are. And if Mr. Smith doesn't show up one day, you start to wonder what happened to Mr. Smith. They become your friends.
It's an entire
you
community.
care about them.
Yeah, it
you
is,
care
definitely.
about
But
them.
I
That's
think
correct.
you're right in your other plans also. It has to go back to the community. You have to get the person who represents that area involved, and the public has to do it. And that would be a perfect
Well,
campaign.
I had a question about that because, again, the public may not be as familiar with the budgetary process. Is there a different process for the capital budget that it is for the funding budget of the $65 million?
Is there a difference?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the
Certainly
process.
it comes from a whole different.
In other words, is this something that the mayor can do? Or is this something the city council can do? Is this something that the state can do? I've heard before that there was an effort to try to get the state to contribute. In fact, some of the libraries were going into Albany as
Yes.
early as yesterday to try to get Albany to provide more funding for the libraries.
Yes,
Can you
we
tell us a
were.
little bit about
Certainly,
that?
we were up in Albany yesterday with a very, very large group of people from the New York City area, certainly looking for money from the state. And it was a capital money we were looking for. We were looking for $1.6 million to to help with repairs on the buildings, with construction, and so forth with the buildings. So that's what we were looking for.
You focused yesterday on New York City's problem.
We focused on New York City's problem. That's correct. Yesterday.
So then there would be two things. It would be the local legislator, the city council person, and the state assembly person and state senator.
State
who
senator.
represent
we
it.
don't-
And you
Right.
put
The
pressure on
process-
all of them. It has to be put on all of them.
The process is the same for both.
Right.
We need to pressure our city council. We need to pressure the mayor. We need to pressure our state elected officials. Right? And we even get federal money. It can't hurt to pressure our
And
U.S.
absolutely-
and
that's
U.S.
exactly,
Congress
and that's exactly the
congressmen.
process that should be done, because everybody's making a big fuss over education and how do you handle it and what do you do. Well, that's a component of education, and it all should be funded.
Well, the libraries are actually chartered by the Department of Education of New York State, and yet we're looked at as a cultural institution, not an educational institution. And that was something that we are looking at as well, thinking that if we could be more of an educational institution, that we would be looked at differently and we would get more funding, because we would get funding that would be in line with the education, with the Department of Education, and that would better suit us.
Yeah, certainly this is a long-standing battle. The libraries are such valuable assets to the community.
Right.
I want to thank you both for joining us today in the discussion. I think that we have a long fight, but it is a good fight, and we're looking forward to continuing that fight for the benefit of the public at large.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Good.
Joining us now are Valentin Colon, President of New York Public Library Guild, Local 1930, and Cuthbert Dickerson, President of Quasi-Public Employees, Local 374. Welcome. Val, and Cupworth to this important discussion about libraries today. Now, help me understand. You two represent New York Public Libraries.
Yes.
What does that cover, encompasses? How many libraries is that?
I cover the Bronx, Manhattan, and Staten Island,
3 boroughs.
3 boroughs of the city, and I have over 92 facilities, and that's branches, that's public service institutions. And then we have a few other places.
And can you tell me how this campaign of getting the proper funding for libraries is going to help your current condition in the libraries in NYPL?
For us, it'll mean additional staffing. This is if we get this additional $65 million from the City Council. Means much needed staffing in order to improve on the services that we already do offer and actually expand those services because the demand is even getting greater as the day goes by. We have so many different things that we're trying. We like to be innovative, but unfortunately, money talks, and without the money, we can't do it. And with staffing shortages, creates a problem. You don't have
you
staff.
actually lost in the last number of years, so many years?
I will say that in the last 10 years, I've lost about 650 members. or more.
650 employees.
Yes. And my numbers continue to dwindle.
And those are frontline employees providing services
Yes.
to the public.
Yes.
So part of what we talked about is the condition of the facility. So Cupworth, can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out there with the cuts on, and funding for libraries in the facilities?
Yeah, first let me say thanks for having me. Over the past 10 years, we have seen a reduction in our members of the tune of approximately 225 members. And so, therefore, it's a hardship on the remaining members. We are the ones that clean the bathroom. We are the ones that keep the air conditioner running. We are the ones that keep the boil on in the wintertime. We are the ones that keep water running. And as well, I represent the guards as well. And security in the building is an issue as well. So we had a reduction in staff right across the board. And as you know, New York Public Library is what is said to be the Mecca Library. People just don't come from all over the 50 continental United States. People come from all over the world as well to visit our Fifth Avenue library. And so we want to make sure that the lighting is adequate, is over 1,000 different lighting in our library. We don't wait till the bulbs is blown to change the bulb. They get dim, and as they get dim, we have to change it. And with the cut in our members, it's hard to do an adequate job with the members that we do have.
You know, access to service in the library system has become much more critical now. In fact, libraries have been portrayed as mini city halls where people can go and get service from, you know, getting information about their taxes to after-school programs. Can you tell us a little bit about the services that are provided in the libraries?
Well, what I tell people is we're no longer just books. Okay? We went from books, cassettes, records to CDs, DVD. Right. Now we have talking books. We now offer free Wi-Fi, computers. We actually lend out Wi-Fi to students. We do English as a second language. We've had multiple programs on finances, retirement, pet psychology programs. And of course, we try to work with the city when they want us to add a program or service, and we try to make it available. Free taxes, voter registration, immigration information.
But adding a program without funding or without a person to actually initiate the program or operate the program, you can't. And has it affected, in addition to the program, has it affected your ability to stay open to serve the public? Have your hours been shortened?
See, for us at New York Public, our hours haven't been drastically affected. We still open quite a bit. We do have branches that are open 7 days a week. But again, without the actual staffing to man those places, means that the public has to wait a little longer. As far as programs, yeah, we've had programs that we've offered where then the money runs out and we have to cancel it. And the staff really suffer because a lot of the staff really enjoy being able to offer those programs to the community.
The funding for your library comes from where? What sources? It's not just the city, right?
No, we get city, state, and federal. Yeah, so the money comes from all over.
But the vast majority of the funding, it's a city. So this
Yes.
campaign is about the $65 million in addition to that the city would have to put, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
In order to maintain 6-day service and how many hours a week?
We, at New York Public Library, I believe it's 52 hours that we're doing.
52.
Okay? And of course, we do have a few locations that actually have more. I mean, I have one location that's open 8 in the morning to 11 at night, 4 days a week. So,
Well, I've been in some of those lines behind NYPL, and I can, as a patron, I can sense the frustration. But at the same time, as the leader of the union, I can see the people and the morale when they're trying to do the best, but just simply cannot handle because they don't have enough staff. How do you think your members balance that, trying to continue to provide quality service with the fact that they don't have enough manpower to cover for the stations that they're servicing?
it's funny, I ask my members the same thing. I say, how do you guys do it? You know? They don't go on vacation. A lot of my staff, we have so much vacation time piled on because people don't want to leave, because they fear that if they leave and someone calls out sick, the branch may actually close, which means that if it closes, it means no one's being served. It could mean that a program won't be done. Or we may have 2 children's classes coming in, and we're going to have to call the teacher and tell her, you can't bring the kids.
You must have the same problem. If you don't have a person to repair something that goes wrong, or a toilet that malfunctions or can function, you're going to have to close a facility because people can't use it.
Exactly. And in Val's case, previously, it used to take approximately 5 employees to open the library. Now they open the library on 2.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay, 2 employees. Can you imagine opening a library with just 2 employees?
Wow.
And so in my case, let's take on the weekends, for example.
Right.
On Saturdays, what you have is that we are so short that the custodians go around to the different buildings, and all they can do is just pick up garbage and empty the garbage. There is no time to really clean the bathroom and mop and do all the necessary work that is needed, because they're so short staffed. All they have time to do is just empty the garbage.
How many buildings are you talking about now?
We're talking about 92 buildings.
So they're doing a circuit of 92 buildings because there's no other way to cover.
Right, they don't have the coverage, you know, on the weekend. And I just want to just touch on one topic in reference to the capital budget. In the library, like Hunts Point, for example, Hunts Point years ago, we had living custodians. And so, yeah, and so now those custodians are out and those floors are vacant.
Wow.
Okay? And those floors can be utilized if we get the money.
Right.
And you have a branch like the Soundview and Westchester Square. Westchester Square is located in a medical center.
Right.
And we need money to build a new Westchester Square. We need money to expand our Soundview branch. So the reduction in funds is quite devastating to the library itself and the libraries and employees, because we have to do more with less.
With less, right.
Well, I've always said that a budget is a statement of principles and priorities. I cannot comprehend how in a budget for the city of New York with over $70 billion, we can't find $65 million to properly fund and staff libraries to make sure that the people are there. And I'm just wondering, you know, since you go from library to library, and you talk to patrons, and you talk to the people that work in the library, what is the perception of the public? Do they really think that it is a matter of funding, or is it a problem that they believe that it's just the staff not doing the work? I'm very curious about that.
Well, the public is pretty much, you know, confused. Over the last 2 years, I may say, there's a tremendous reductions of books on the shelves. And the patrons complain tremendously about that. So they have this new so-called One New York Public Library. And so what you have to do, if a book is not there, you have to order it. Now, bear in mind, you have to wait until that book becomes available. So if
So
that's
there's no refreshing of stock?
no.
So how do they afford to buy new books for their 3 library systems?
Well, they can't
Well,
because they do not have the money.
So part of this campaign of the 65 would not only be to help staff the libraries proper, but it also goes for books,
Yeah.
for computers, for infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
That's part of what the capital is also supposed to cover. Bricks and mortars and roofs, the stuff that the public is in need in the very libraries. Is that right?
Correct. Correct.
Well, that's what we hope.
That's what
We
you're
hope that
Yeah.
Well, I think this has been an unprecedented coalition. To think that the head of the 3 library systems, the unions, the community groups, the city council members, led by Council Member Jimmy Van Brainer and by Julissa Ferreira, who is also the chair of Finance Committee, I think that's a very important thing to do. But I think at this point, the question is, what else can the public do in that community to become involved? Should they be contacting the mayor, the city council? What do you think would be
They need to be vigorous. They need to be vigorous advocate for libraries.
Right.
They need to call up the city council. They need to lobby their mayor. They need to go to their headquarters. They need to do anything humanly possible in order to help the library get proper funding.
Well, this has been very educational for us. I want to thank you both for coming and participating in this discussion. To be continued, folks. The library funding fight has only begun.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be going to the city council, the mayor of the city of New York, to complete that fight and be successful.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I am Henry Garrido, Executive Director of District Council 37.